Hey everybody, Bill Manning with Atlanta Film Co. As you probably already heard, we have released our 100-foot spools. The great thing about these films here is that you can use bulk loaders to shoot a lot of film at a really affordable rate. For example, our Atlanta Film Co. Euphoric 100 is a color reversal film that you can shoot as little as $10 a roll right now. For color reversal, slide film at $10 a roll is a huge savings, and that is one of the goals here at Atlanta Film Co. is to be able to shoot film at affordable prices. So you're probably wondering, how am I going to get this into here? And well, this video is going to show you how to do that. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so what essentially we have here are the main components that we're going to be working with our film. So we'll just kind of start with the basics. So we have the film here. So this is, for the demonstration purposes, this is the Atlanta Film Co. 250D canister. This is just one of 5 that we offer. We offer black and white in the XX. We also have our Euphoric 100, which is a color reversal, and as well as the 200T, 250D, and 500T, and hopefully pretty soon the 50D. So what we have here are going to be some scissors to cut the film, a pen for labeling what we've rolled, and then as well as a bulk loader here. So let's dive into the actual bulk loader. So this is a very basic bulk loader. This one is a very common one. This is the Lloyd's bulk loader here. There's no counters or anything. You have a piece of felt here where the film comes out of. Essentially, this is what makes this safe to process or to spool in broad daylight. Now, before we start with anything, you can see here it says, warning, do open in complete darkness. Please, for the purpose of this video, this is completely demonstration. The film that I'm using here has technically already been processed. It's test film. So if you do this, please do this in a changing bag that's completely light tight, or if you have a closet that's completely dark, just make sure that when you're loading this film, you are in complete darkness. So again, this video is purely for demonstration purposes, so you can see what we're doing. All right, so in the dark, there is a piece of tape around here, but again, this is just for demonstration. There is none here. Essentially, once you open it up, inside, you will have our labels. So every ECN2 film gets 20 labels. This is incredibly important. I cannot stress this enough. If you're going to be shooting ECN2 films, please use these labels, because the last thing we want happening is a film going through a C41 processor at a lab. It is incredibly costly for those labs to dump the chemistry and then actually spend a lot of time cleaning that out. It can cost hundreds, even thousands of dollars to swap out chemistry, because that remjet will destroy and contaminate the chemistry. And I personally have not seen it happen, but I've heard stories where labs do try to hold the person accountable for that, and so we want to help make sure that you are not held responsible for any potential damages that you create by being a little dishonest and not running that film and not properly labeling it as ECN2. All right, so very important. Do not discard this. So you see here we have the different types of films, the roll notes. This can be when it was spooled, sure, how many exposures, but essentially they'll be in this little window right here. If you're doing any kind of push processing requests or something along those lines, that's where you would put that information. Here, this would be the actual, if it's 500T, 250D, or whatever, and then the number of exposures. This right here is for what is called the confirmation window. This is where if your camera has a little window that you can see what you have loaded in there, that will tell you what's in there. All right. Okay. So now we have the dart bag here. We're going to just go ahead and pull that out, and it's in a bag. And then we're just kind of in complete darkness. You're going to kind of feel around, find the piece of tape that's holding it down. Just peel that back, and then pull it out. Essentially, again, this film is processed film here, so there's nothing, that can damage us. So please, again, make sure that this is done in complete darkness. Essentially, this is a 1-inch film core. This is completely compatible with the bulk loaders here for this one. If you're using the AP bulk loader, this is also completely compatible with them as well. And then essentially what you're going to do is, in complete darkness, you're going to take the lid off. And then you have a piece of tape here that's kind of like a pull-off tab. You're just going to pull that off. Just peel that off. And now this is the important part. The film should go in a straight line, right? So like it should come out this way. Do not load it this way, because what's going to essentially happen is you should see the remjet on the top and then the emulsion on the bottom. Again, this is just test film, so you can't really see that, but I'll show you here. This is the remjet. It's a black layer, and then this is the emulsion on the bottom side. So it should come out of the bulk loader like this. All right, so something very important to make sure of that. So when you are loading it in, it should feed like this. So just know that the bottom side is what kind of flaps, the kind of flaps down here, right? All right. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to go ahead and open this up, and then we're going to just take our film here, and then we're just going to kind of pull some of that out, feed it through, and then drop it through the pin like so, and then just kind of wind it back in, and then leave a little bit of that hanging out. So it should look something like that. Now we're just simply going to take our lid, put it in, just make sure, kind of feel around, make sure that it's nice and smooth around the edges. You want to avoid any kind of light leaks, and then take your lid and then screw it down until it makes a nice tight seal, and then it's completely light safe from that point on. All right, so you can flip the lights on, and then now you're able to work. Now, something to mention here, if you're having a hard time in the dark trying to get this film loaded and it's just not working out, don't panic. Take this out, pull it out. If you really want to, tear a piece or cut a piece, a strip out, and then you can use that to test in daylight. But you can put that roll back in here, all right? Put it back into the canister, and then, kind of set it back aside and then troubleshoot as far as what you're having issues trying to get loaded in here, right? So last thing you want to do is panic and turn the lights on, and then you've ruined, your entire 100 feet. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. So when you're working with this, take your time. All right, so let's get this space cleaned up a little bit. So the next step is getting the film attached to this. There's a couple ways of doing this, right? So you can purchase blank cassettes from any major camera store. They will have the blank cassettes. Alternatively, if you have a lab that's nearby, you can always ask them, and either they'll sell it to you for really, really cheap, or they'll just give it to you. You would really want to have the canisters with the tab that's sticking out. So this would be a lab that uses like a mini lab processor, where it pulls the film and then it makes a cut once it's reached the end. Right, so So that's something that I would highly recommend. There are definitely some cheap options as far as how to get a hold of these. The cool part is if you do have, if you purchase the reloadables, you can always just add a note that's saying to the lab, hey, after you've processed this film, I'd like to get it back. And they should be able to just accommodate that and send it back to you, and then you can reuse that. All right, so in this particular method, we're using the one that you would typically see from a lab, right? So you'll have a couple perfs that are sticking out, and this is where we're going to make our splice. This particular tape here is a silicone based tape. It's a heat transfer tape. It's a very strong bond, and it peels away without leaving any residue. This is the kind of tape that a lot of labs use when they're taping their film to the leader card. And it's got a really great strength as far as holding on to surfaces. So we really like this kind of tape. And I'll drop a link in the comments below if you have any if you're looking to see where you can get this. I would stay away from masking tape or any of the Scotch tape or anything along those lines because they don't peel away very easily. They do leave a residue, and not significant damage to the chemistry, but it does exhaust the chemistry much more quickly, right? So especially if you're developing at home. So this tape right here, again, does not leave a residue, and it's great for pretty much, running it through chemistry and everything along those lines. So what I do here is I take about 2 inches, 2 to 3 inches. And then, most importantly, when I line this up, I want to leave a little bit over the edges. And what we'll do is when we make that splice, we're going to bend this around the edge here. And that's going to give us a nice solid hold between the two films. All right, so we're going to take that. We're going to line it up. And then now we're going to just bend it around the edge. Make sure that you have a nice solid hold between the two pieces of film. All right, and so that's what it should look like. Very, very clean splice. All right, and then essentially we're just going to kind of wind that into the canister a little bit. And then we're just going to go ahead and load it in like that. Okay, so we now have the film in here. And we do have some counters here. So again, for this particular Lloyd's, 30 rotations gives you 36 exposures, 24 for 24, 19 rotations for 18 exposures, and 13 rotations for 10 exposure. Why the different numbers? So, obviously 36 and 24 makes sense for less exposures, but something that I think really works out very well is for half frame shooters. If you think about it, 18 exposure roll for 36, 36 exposure film, that gives you 36 exposures for half frames. Right, so if you're shooting half frame at 36, you're going to have 72 exposures, 48 if you're shooting 24 exposures. So that really does take a long time. But you're not really going to, something to kind of mention too, you're not going to get a really big cost savings when it comes to chemistry, because regardless of if it's 10 exposure or 18 exposure on the length of film, you're most likely going to be charged the same amount for processing. So that's just kind of how it is with the labs. I don't know why. I don't make the rules, but it does. That's kind of how it is. So you're not going to see huge cost savings as far as chemistry if you're going through a lab. If you are with yourself, you probably can extend the amount of longevity that you get out of the chemistry and everything along those lines. Something to kind of keep in mind. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop that key in, and just make sure that it kind of falls into place, right? So it should just kind of land right in there, and just kind of pay attention to where your key has landed, because every time, every rotation that you make from here back around to this same spot is one rotation, right? So we're going to go and do 30. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. All right. So we have 30 rotations here. This, when you're rotating, it should be very, very, very smooth. If you run into any kind of snags and something didn't go right, stop immediately. Do not try to force it, because if you do try to force it, what ends up happening is the canister or the cassette inside will torque, and this is plastic, and it doesn't take much. It will break. So just something to make sure this should be smooth as butter. So it should be able to kind of rotate without any problems. If you do run into a problem, immediately stop. You can go back into the dark if you're comfortable enough, pull that film out and kind of feel around, get it back into the spool if you want to. Alternatively, if there's something wrong, I typically, no pun intended, cut my losses, literally cut the film off and discard it, because that's something that I wouldn't even risk it, because we are making the film for customers and everything along those lines. I would not want to risk any issues going wrong with the film. All right, so just keep that in mind. And then essentially, we're just going to open this up, and then we're going to pull this out, and you see that we'll have our film here. And then essentially, we just make our cut. All right, so again, this is just demonstration film here. But what I have here is a roll of film. So once I've made that cut, what I typically do is I kind of bring it out and make it the length of my finger here. And that's just kind of how I know the length that I need. And then what I typically do is when I make the leader here is I kind of start about 3/4 of the way down. If you're looking to be really exact, the curve falls off somewhere between the 8th and 9th perf. So you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. So the fall off will be right in there. So we'll just start there. And then it just kind of follow a nice curve. All right. And then what I typically do is I trim the corners off. Like that. And the reason why I trim the corners off and have a 45 degree angle is I don't like to have straight edges, because if something gets snagged or anything along those lines, it will rip the film. This film is designed to rip away if something goes wrong, like in a film camera or something along those lines. So I typically just do that just to make it kind of a little bit cleaner, and it does look a little bit more professional. So at the time of this recording right now on the Atlanta Film Co. website, we are working on replenishing our inventory of the leader trimmers that we have stocked for Resvot. So if you're watching this now, go ahead and head over to Atlanta Film Co. Most likely we will have those bulk loaders available. So, or excuse me, the leader trimmers available. All right, so, and then apply the label, right? So taping it down, taking the notes. So again, you can see here that I put down the date, checked off the stock that we have, and then I also added the stock number and the number of exposures in the confirmation window and applied it. And that is pretty much it. So that is our first roll here. You should get about 17 to 20 rolls of 36 exposure if things, go right and everything along those lines. So give that a shot. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop a question down in the comments below, or alternatively, shoot us an email over at sales@atlantafilmco.com. Have a great day, everybody.